All right. What's up, man?
How you doing? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you this evening.
Don't be,
Good to
don't
be
be
here.
awkward, okay? So, how did you get started?
So I got started. I got started in this industry basically by accident. My first job, really ever, was at a high-end retirement facility right across the street from my parents' house. It was walking distance, and I was a server there. I did that for 2 years. But I still gravitated towards the kitchen for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I would always end up like, hey, how did you cook that chicken? Or there was so many dietary restrictions back then. It was like the precursor to now, like no gluten. I want the cauliflower crust on the pizza. So that kind of intrigued me. And then, moving forward, I ended up getting a job as a dishwasher because I was just playing Assassin's Creed at my parents' couch for 6 months after working at BurgerFi, comparable to Shake Shack, Five Guys, and a Sonic in my hometown.
Oh,
Then
wow.
from there, yeah, then from there, my cousin, he was a grill cook, and I went to go meet the chef because they were like, hey, we need a dishwasher. I was like, all right, screw it. Of course I'll go. My cousin told me to get off of the couch. You're coming with me today. And he was like, this is the chef. This is a kitchen. It was at a country club. I had never seen professional level food at all. So it looked very, very cool. Everyone seemed very passionate, like, yo, you got to taste this. You got to eat this. I was like, all right, this is
So,
cool.
wait
I
a
like
second. So, how long were you a dishwasher at?
Country Club of Florida. So I washed dishes there for like a season, but I didn't start in the beginning of the season. In, I started the 24th. I started Christmas Eve. That was my first day. And my first
Right.
day in, the chef was like, hey, listen, just stay on the three compartment, watch how the other guys do it, and then just, kind of hang back and see how we run the operation. So within like 30 minutes, I'm just in the middle of the dish pit. I abandoned the three compartment. All the piles of dishes are coming. I told this one guy, Gene, I was like, here, man, I got this. So I just start annihilating dishes. And from there, basically the rest of the season, I would wash all the dishes, and then I would learn stocks. I learned how to cut vegetables. I started hearing these terms, mirepoix, brunoise, depoyage, pinçage, all these terms, and I was like, man, this is way different than flipping burgers at the Sonic.
So, is this the time that you actually told yourself that you're gonna go to school?
I did go to culinary school. Hilariously, the same school that you went to, but under a different name. Years
Right.
later, Florida Culinary
Yes.
became Lincoln Culinary, and now Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
Culinary is an abandoned building off of 45th Street.
It
Um,
is. You know what?
and I
What
drove
happened
past
to
it
that?
today.
The government like shut down all these technical schools. Like by the time they get out from that school, and then they start their life, they're in debt and they can't pay for it. So the government fucking shut it down.
Like 80% of my graduating class isn't even in our industry anymore.
Yeah.
I know like
Same
three
with
guys
mine.
that are still with it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially, so when I was in the dish pit, I really started. So to go back,
Mm-hmm.
I had done short order cooking at two like burger spots, fast food spots. Um, but I enjoyed it. I really did. I don't know what about it, but I was like, man, I love it when these tickets come in. I toasting bread, like, all right, get the cheese, burgers, da 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 da. I just enjoyed the vibe of it. So then when I
Mm-hmm.
started washing dishes, it wasn't completely alien. I just didn't understand the level of food and how much further the food was than a short order, operation. So I just kind of liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I started cutting mirepoix, started straining the stocks. So when that season ended, it was a very seasonal club that where I eventually met you. It was very seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
So come May, it was like you got to find a new job. So I told myself, I was like, you know what, I could do this. I did
Mm-hmm.
a couple semesters at Palm Beach State. I was like, all right, let me give this a go. Let me see what this says. So I started school, taking the bus from Boynton to 45th, walking, then walking back to the bus after school, taking it back down. And I actually really enjoyed the schooling, but I got most, I would say, of my base knowledge from just the reading of the textbooks. Um, but then I started in the pantry.
Speaking about textbooks, what is your favorite book to read? I mean,
My favorite
at
book
that time.
at that time, well, my favorite culinary book at that time.
Yes.
Well, at that time, I was so green. I didn't even fully comprehend the cultural diversity that our industry like truly offers. I had no idea about Robo Sean. I didn't know about Thomas Keller. They were like, it was like you heard a little thing about them. I grew up in Boynton Beach. This I didn't grow up in downtown Los Angeles. I didn't grow up in Boston, these super foodie places. I knew about Publix, Domino's, and Wings Plus. Those were my immediate, and especially in Boynton, it's not a restaurant foodie area, so there was no energy to draw on. Like, oh, the chef down out in the whatever, he did the thing over at the whatever. There was none of that. So then at that, I would say my main focus point really became LaRousse cookbooks. LaRousse, the
Right.
Sauce Bible, the Soup Bible, and I kind of pulled him out of the textbook. For any other culinary students out there, they could probably be familiar with the textbook like On Cooking.
Right.
They've released volumes and volumes and volumes of those. But I really gravitated towards his cookbooks, and I still have, one there. I got three right there. So, yeah, I would say that kind of became my favorite reading, learning about like sauces and soups. I was like, man, this stuff goes so deep. I had no idea that it went that deep. It was really a great experience.
Oh my God, it's deep. Cooking itself is deep. It's an art, man. It's hard to explain. Like I feel comfortable in the kitchen. I'm myself. I love to cook. I love the craziness. I guess that's why I'm in this industry. Kind
I
of
don't think I
like
could work at a Best
the
Buy.
rebels,
Seriously,
huh?
I don't think I could work at a Best Buy. I'd
That's
be in the
true.
lunchroom
Too
like, yo, who
boring.
needs a sub? Who needs a sub? I got you. I brought all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I start culinary school. I'm digging it, and so when the time came to open up this country club, that my cousin was the grill cook. Um, they kind of let me know. They said my cousin was like, "Hey, listen, the chef there, he's leaving. I'm not gonna stick around. I'm gonna go to another place." And shout out to Josh Yanazelli for kind of telling me like, "Listen, once you see real food, there's not gonna be any reverse." So that year, I was like, "Well, I don't have another job. I'm in culinary school." I was like, "I'll just go and speak with the new chef, and I'll just kind of tell him like, hey, I'm in culinary school. I would like to try to do the cooking. I worked as a dishwasher last year. You know, so then I meet Chef Rob, a massive
Right.
influence to me as a professional, even as a human being. And I meet you. I meet Chef J.R. Apau,
Yeah.
massive influence to me as a human and as a chef. Um, so then it was like my first day, and I walk in, I say, hey, my name is Daniel. I was a dishwasher. I'm in culinary school. I'd like to try the cooking. So Chef Rob says, oh, okay, and as a side note, anyone listening to this podcast, you'll hear a lot of names that have come up and been with our crew throughout the years. But Stanley was already working, I think. I'm not sure how we got the job there, but Stanley was there like before I came back.
I think Stanley was a dishwasher, right? Am I wrong on that one?
Not when I was there. When I came back to speak with Chef Rob, Stanley, I guess, had already applied or he knew somebody, but he was kind of already in, and he was gonna be like the pantry cook, pantry
Right.
pantry chef. So, but I'm talking to chef, and I completely lied, 100%. I had said to chef because he was gonna put me. It was like a two-man station. There was like the primary, and then there was like the secondary. But I really wanted to to move forward, and I
Right.
really just had like that energy, like I'm gonna do it. So I actually told I told Chef Rob in that first initial meeting, I was like, hey, the chef, before he told me that I could be, in the pantry, if I go to school, and I can be like the lead pantry cook, So I kind of got my foot in the door there as the lead pantry cook. So instead of being I'm gonna cut the lettuce, I was like, I'm gonna be in charge of the lettuce.
Right.
Little did Chef Rob know that I didn't know what croutons were, and had no idea that I needed salt or a mixing bowl to make a salad. Didn't know you needed plates. Had zero organizational ability. So
I mean, sorry to cut you off, but me and Daniel have so much history together. I mean, over time, we're going to talk about it, but man, him and I go a long way, like a long way.
yeah, so we begin season, and like the first day, it's me and it's Stanley on the station, and I don't remember all the minute specific details, but I do remember them being you and Chef being like, okay, so here is the menu, and I remember looking at the menu and going, don't know what I'm supposed to do. No idea what I'm supposed to do. I know what lettuce is. I got my culinary, I got my Mercer knife, I got my whole kit, like a briefcase, have no idea what I'm supposed to do with any of it. I got a bread knife out, like randomly sitting on the stainless next to the sink. And for those of you who have worked on pantry stations or any kitchen really, or for no one who's ever seen a professional kitchen, there is no one design. It all has to do with the space of the building, the intentions of the chef for service, if it's a banquet-based kitchen, if it's an a la carte-based kitchen. But this kitchen was designed, the pantry was perpendicular to the hotline. So if you're prepping, the hotline is perpendicular, and then it's kind of shaped like an L. So there's cutting boards, and then there's a double sink, and then it comes back around to another cold line, and you're like in between the cold line, the sinks are on the left, and like the expo line is in front. So I'm trying to set up the station, and I just got like the bags of the Andy Boy lettuce just like on the countertop, right? And I think you walked over and was like, hey man, this isn't set up properly. And I'm just like, all right, well, all right. I'm just like, I'm like 21 years old, 20 or maybe, 21, and I'm like, all right, how is it supposed to be? I don't know. I've been sitting, in a desk, and then I've been going into a classroom. I don't have a station to organize. And I remember you trying to explain to me, like, listen, you have to put the salt here. You have to put your pepper here. You need gloves. You need where's your sanitizer bucket? I'm like, sanitizer bucket? It's in the dish pit. And you're like, well, you need one over here with you. And you're like, where's the tasting spoons? I'm like, well, what do I need to taste, chef? You're like,
yeah.
What? Do you know how to make vinaigrettes? Like, yeah, of course. I made, 4 this summer. I think I made one today in class. You're like, okay, so here's the recipe for Caesar dressing. No idea how to make Caesar dressing. I have to make a 5-gallon batch. I could make a pint, like 3 eggs.
Yeah, I remember those. And I remembered, like, we were doing service at one time. And then all of a sudden I hear you shout, saying, like, Chef, 86 Caesar salad. I said, like, what? What are you talking about?
We're out of the cut lettuce, chef. We're out.
We're out of lettuce. I said, like, what do you mean? Like, I just ordered, like, 2 cases in the walk-in. Like, fucking grab it. Like, cut some. Like, Chef, 86. Those were the times.
Go get more lettuce from the cooler. Like, totally dumbfounded. Like, oh, duh. Of course.
Oh, that was awesome.
I remember when I was just still a dishwasher. This is how ignorant I was of the ways of food in general. I remember being a dishwasher and someone was in the weeds for something, and I had no concept of the weeds, as I don't think anyone really does until you're a cook and in the weeds. Right. You don't really know. Like when a cook says, I'm in the weeds, can you get it for me now? They mean like, stop what you're doing, immediately go get it. They don't mean like in 5 minutes once you've put the glasses in the wine rack. Like, no, stop, drop everything, go get it. But they were like, I need, go get me the kohlrabi. I'm like, I got it. I sprint to the produce cooler. I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't know what the hell is a kohlrabi. I run back out. What is a kohlrabi? They're like, it's the green thing. It looks like the fennel ball, but it's more smooth. I'm like, all right, but what's a fennel? They're like, what? They're like, what's wrong with you, dude? Go get the. somebody go help this guy. I'm like, I had no idea. My product knowledge was so vastly inequipped to deal with these types of questions. Had no idea the difference between a skirt steak and a flank steak, a short rib, and
Yeah.
I could identify a turkey, I could identify a steak, but I
Chicken?
wouldn't be able to tell you. Yeah, that's a chicken, chef, right? And like,
Yeah.
it's a squab. Well, that's what I said. It's a small chicken. They're like, no, it's a squab. Like,
Let me interrupt you. Like, school only is there to teach you the history.
basic
Everything
theory.
that, yes, the knowledge that you have now is basically through experience. No one can take that away from you. It's like you have to burn a steak for you to cook a steak properly. You have to sear a salmon properly for you to cook it properly. And like you know what I mean? Like it's like you learn these little things in the industry. Failure kind of makes you better, if that even makes sense.
100% true. It's just like I would say riding a bicycle. Playing music. Uh, if you were to practice tennis or skateboard, something of this nature, it's muscle memory. You read about the kohlrabi that you peel it with your peeler, and then you grate it into a salsa with fresh herbs and things and a little lemon juice and olive oil. You read it in your culinary textbook, and you're like, okay, so you make one of this salad that you don't really eat. There's some great schools out there, and I'm not knocking any of the chefs that I studied under while I was in school, but it's not the same as every day tasting the kohlrabi slaw. Make sure that it tastes proper, and knowing that, okay, this is a kohlrabi that is of high quality. This one's been in the fridge. Oh, the produce cooler had a malfunction. It froze all the produce. We can't sell that.
Like if you cut a kohlrabi too early, it becomes soggy. Like you need to cut it the day of, or like closer
Or
to
grate it
service.
just before you put it on top of the fish, things like this. So I guess in short, that's kind of how I got started in the industry. Had a love of food from eating. I love to eat food. I've never really been a picky eater. I started doing short order cooking after I worked as a server, and I enjoyed the short order cooking. And then when I really got my first taste of, wow, he's wearing a chef coat. He just yelled at me because my apron was dirty. I said, that's something that's different. Working at the short order plate, maybe you wear an apron, but it's a t-shirt, and it's a flat top. And I really enjoyed the short order cooking, but it was a really different element to the professional aspect of it, and everyone took it very serious. There was no, I'm going to go, people would smoke, there's always smokers who, I'll be right back. But there was never like that attitude of like, I'll just be back later. Where in the short order places, you have someone quit in the middle of the shift and never tell you. They just don't come back, and you're like, it's been 2 hours. I think he quit. There was never that nonchalant attitude, and it was very, very, it was a very stark comparison between the two worlds of working at the Sonic in Boynton Beach, and wow, everyone has a chef knife that they take care of, and they don't let you touch it. One of the main things that I really saw, when I started, under Chef Rob, under you in the kitchen, I didn't understand it for a while. I started acquiring tools, and eventually after about a year in the kitchen, going into my first summer after the pantry season, I would say I really started to kind of get like that, not greedy. Greedy is not an appropriate word, but like, no, that's my spoon. If you use my bread knife, you got to clean it, you got to put it back. But I would say that's one of the main things that I didn't really get in culinary school, was like the cultural influence of like the spoon culture, the tool bucket culture. In the kitchen that I started in, in the pantry, you, Fabian, Jamie came aboard, Chef Rob, you guys, especially Chef Rob, you had your tool bucket with you. Where you went, so did the tools and possibly a tactical knife. And I can remember very early on, you always being like, you're going to go carve a station, carve some beef. Oh, where's your bucket? Where's your spoon? Where's your stuff? Oh, I don't know, chef. Like, well, you need it. If you go, so does the tool bucket. It's like, why would a police officer walk around without a radio, handcuffs, and a firearm and a baton? It just doesn't make sense. So that
Right.
definitely is something that I wasn't trained on at all, in culinary school. And culinary school was like, okay, go get the house spoon from the bucket. It's 12 and a half feet long, like an oar that you can use, but and it's bent, it's got holes in it. It doesn't feel like personal. And then when you get like your spoon, even if it's a cheap $1 spoon, like it's your spoon, and you like put it in your area with your spot, and you protect it, you nurture it, you take care of it, and eventually, fast forward to me current, it's like, don't touch the spoons. They have their own power. They have a mind of their own. If my spoon, because people they'll always they'll grab a spoon from the bucket, because they're prepping close to me, and they don't have their bucket, and I'll bust their chops for it all day. But I'll tell them, hey, listen, if my spoon is not in your hand, it is in my bucket. It does not even touch the counter. Your hand or my bucket. There is no two ways about it, And then we'll do a lineup, and we'll say like, okay, everybody, this is what we got going on. Just randomly cut mid conversation. I will literally be like, hey, by the way, can you just grab your fish spatula for me out of your bucket? I just want to see something. Chef, my bucket's it's downstairs in my locker, and my fish spatula's in my bag. I was like, exactly. It should be in a bucket with your salt, olive oil, salt, pepper.
Like if you have your bucket, you have your knives, you have your tools, right? You're ready. You're ready to cook. It doesn't matter. Like if chef would tell me, hey, I need you in the saute area today. You're sauteing tonight. I could say, yes, chef. I grab my bin. I grab my knife. I grab my pepper mill, and I'm set. Like, I'm ready to go. But without these tools, how can you say that you're ready to tackle a service? Like, you just can't. Like, you're not ready. Like, in the kitchen, you always need to be ready. I don't care who you are. Like, even the greatest chefs have a bucket. They have their mise en place ready in front of them. So if worst comes to worst, it's there, and they would be able to tackle whatever situation that they're in. Am I wrong? Like,
100% correct.
Great chefs still do it. Why can't you? Why can't anybody in this industry? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I just don't understand. It's important. Culture is important. Structure is important.
It's almost like the French knew what they were doing, after years of, having the guilds, the butchers guild, the soup guild, the seamstress guild. It's like almost after 200 years, the French kind of figured out they need a structure, and then it works. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel in our industry anymore. All you have to do is assemble it, and the pieces are generally readily available. I noticed that with a lot of young cooks as well. And I was one of those young cooks that was very stubborn. Why do I need the bucket? I can just use that. And then you, the sous chef, going like, just shut up and trust me, okay? I've been cooking for 9 years. When I say you need a bucket of spoons, that means you need a bucket of spoons. And young cooks will be like, but I can do it my own way. Like, do my way.
It never works.
But do my way until you develop your own adaptation to this system that works. I see that. I truly see that all the time, especially in not only young cooks in the industry, but also their age bracket. But as far as I'm concerned, inside of 3 years of professional cooking, you are more or less really, really needing to listen to your sous chef and some of those OG guys that have been in the game for a while, because you may pass that saute cook who's been on the saute for 5 years, but if he doesn't go down in service and none of his food comes back, you might want to listen to him about him telling you need a red spatula and a couple of pans to wipe out for scallops.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't want to use the nonstick pan for scallops because I saw this thing one time and I'm going to do it my way. Like, okay, when you go down in flames and chef starts yelling because the scallops look like crap, then you'll maybe understand what I'm talking about.
I get it. The problem is it's not, there's not a whole lot of repetition in their cooking style. Like they haven't seared enough salmon or they haven't seared scallops. It's not embedded in their system, and just seeing it on YouTube, it doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. You have to really ingrain this in your body for you to tell yourself that you actually know how to cook something. And it only takes one type of fish or maybe a few kind of fish to kind of learn how to cook a certain profile, you know? If it's a bronzini, you kind of want to cook it close to pick up. When it's a salmon, you know, you sear it heavy and you finish it in the oven, then pull it so it allows to rest. You gotta focus on the technique, like the searing technique.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's a big part of becoming a well-weathered culinary professional is that it really does take a long time. You got to cook. You got to cut hundreds of pieces of salmon before you're really like, okay, I am the salmon samurai. Give me all the salmon. I will clean 50 sides. I'll have it done and it'll be ready. All nice portions. You really do got to cook 50 pieces of fish before you can really begin to understand what a fish does. Under what
And not just cooking a fish, not just cooking a fish, repeatedly in a row. You can't just say like, oh, today I cooked like fucking 50 salmon and it was perfect, and then the following day you tank, boom. I said like, there's no consistency. Just because you had a good day doesn't mean that you could cook a fish tomorrow. It really is. It needs to be repetitive. It needs to be this. How would you say that? It needs to be like as if like you're.
It needs to be ingrained. It really does
Yeah.
have to be. You don't have to think about it. This is just what
Yes.
happens. Which is
Yes.
so important. Bringing it back to proper technique, proper setup, proper breakdown, the basics. You can't go wrong because I've seen. And you've seen more than me because you've been doing this longer. But, there's always a couple of those guys in the kitchen where they're like, I don't got to set that up like that because it's not going to be busy today. Or, man, I worked in a kitchen that was way busier than this. I don't need to do all that. Like, the way that I set up any station that I set up now is just the perfected method of years and years of practice. But all of the same basics apply. If I'm working the middle station, or the entremet, where you're picking up vegetables, putting them on a plate, I'm still always going to have more or less a seasoning area, my bucket with my salt, pepper mill, olive oil, or a half sheet tray that's got salt, a ladle of olive oil, a ladle of, salad oil, so that way I don't have to burn out the entire kitchen's worth of olive oil on cooking the fish.
Right.
Or the asparagus on the plancha. The setups are the same. You really got to focus on the proper technique. Always set up tight. Always set up, with the intention of being busy. What does this mean if I'm gonna have to cook 30 of them? Not like I'll probably cook 10, so I'm not gonna pre-stage my pie tins with seasoned vegetables so I can just flash it under the broiler. What happens when you do get that weird crush and you just are going down in flames because your station's not properly organized? Organization is king in the kitchen, and
Yes.
I would focus on that more than anything if you're going to start out in this industry.
Like starting your day expecting to be busy is a lot better than slacking off because you think that it's going to be slow because it's a Wednesday or it's a Tuesday. Tuesdays, like the idea is like, like when a cook says like, it's Tuesday, it's not going to be busy, so I'm going to prep less. And then that one Tuesday, you really are going to get busy, and then you're fucked. And then now you're drowning, and then now you're asking for help. You failed for the day. And it's a horrible feeling. I wouldn't want to be in that position because that's demoralizing. Like, I want to succeed. For me to move forward in this industry, I need to constantly succeed. I'm not saying that failure is an option because it is, but that's the beginning stages of your career. Like you have to fuck up a lot in the beginning stages so that when it matters, you can't make these silly mistakes. Like, because it's important. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And going back to my own personal experience, you guys have always trained myself and the others that kind of came up alongside me in the biz, just because we say let's just say whether it's busy or where it's so let's just call 100 covers. We'll call that a medium service. Like, hey, just because there's 100 covers on the book today, don't prep like there's 100 covers. Prep like we're going to do 190, finish early, and learn a new skill set. I see people all day, all week, conditioning their prep rhythm based on the covers that they're going to probably do that evening. I think that's a very bad habit. I think that's a dangerous habit because then you get into the rhythm of I'll just cut asparagus slow because I don't need to do anything else. There's always something else to do. You're never going to get a position until you're truly showing that you can do the workload. You'll never become the grill cook if you don't finish that pantry station early and go ask the grill guy, "Hey man, what are you working on? Can I do something?" If you do that for 3 days in a row, I can almost guarantee you he'll be like, "All right, go get the cream and the bay leaf. We need to make a bechamel flavored base so we can cook polenta." And you're like, "Oh, okay, all right, I got this." So then day in, day out, you're like, "Okay, let's just call him Jamie. Hey, Jamie, I'll cook the polenta today for you before I get my other stuff going." So you're like, okay. You know, you as a sous chef, you're like, okay, Daniel's, I think, been cooking the polenta for the grill guy. Maybe we give him a couple of shifts, you know, during the summertime, kind of see how he does. You'll never progress if you condition your. I never would have progressed if I just conditioned my prep for what we'd probably do. You finish early, you clean the coolers. You clean the coolers, shows responsibility, and that makes you happy, right? Like, oh man, he's been in the cooler cleaning. I don't know what's his name. Who is that? Let's go see if he wants.
But the problem is, right? It's like people only do the bare minimum because they're either lazy or maybe it's not their career. They're just there for the money. But for those people that the goal is to become a chef, I think you should finesse your station or whatever station you're in so you could help others, because the more you help and you see all these different stations, I think the chances of you moving forward or moving up the ladder is a lot quicker than you just, like doing the bare minimum of your station. Like it's a no-brainer. That's how you move forward.
Lazy prep isn't happy prep.
Yes.
You know, the only thing that I can say for, especially for, or not the only thing, I could say a lot of things, but one of the main things that I would tell new people coming into the industry, even like this year, is like, listen, when you come in, you set up your board, you get your sanitizer bucket, you set your knives, you get your salt, you get your gloves. You don't have spoons, you can get those over time. But consistently build the same setup, whether it's on a grill station, a vegetable station, a fish, whatever station. Even if it's a prepping station only, if you just are preparing vegetables for banquets, you set up the same way. Eventually, you start building upon that. Okay, now I have my pan spray station in my third pan now with my olive oil, with my grapeseed oil, with my toasted coriander salt, so that way throughout the years, now you have this expansive, ability to manipulate flavors, textures, but it all started with that same third pan of salt, pepper, olive oil, and a pepper mill. Salt, pepper mill, olive oil, and your tool bucket. It all stems from those same bases. And I would say that's one of the main things that you and Chef stressed upon me when I started was like, listen, man, shut the hell up. Put the salt like this every day. Don't move it. Put it in the same spot. Put your bowls here because this is why. And then after
all right, let
years,
me capitalize on that statement, what you just said. Like, what Daniel is trying to say, if you're going to set up a station, set up the same way over and over again. So when you reach for the salt, you know exactly where the salt is. Put your pepper mill in the same place. Make sure you have all those key components when you're cooking or setting up your cutting board. You always, like Daniel said, you always want to have your salt. You always want to have your pepper mill. You always want to have your oil. Just those three, and your bucket, obviously, and your knife, your sharp knife. If you have those tools, those basic tools, I think you're going to be very successful in this industry. You will, because I could guarantee you, you're probably the only one in that kitchen or wherever kitchen you're working would have a salt in their station, because I've seen it. Like, where's the salt in this kitchen, and no one has it. They work off on the the box.
Working out of the what do they call it? Diamond River, Diamond Crystal. They just working out of the Diamond Crystal bucket that's just underneath the table. Like that's not mise en place. That's not organized.
No.
That's not efficient.
Like it's there. Not having those ninth pan of whatever salt makes me feel like you're not seasoning all the products. This is why we fail as a chef, because we're not seasoning our whatever properly. No, man, season it. Like taste it, eat it.
And to touch on that, Chef JR, when I was coming up, used to always be like, "Well, what does it taste like? What does it taste like?" To bring a full circle, if you want to be successful in this industry, you can't be a picky eater. Taste it. We're not saying you have to eat a bowl of octopus every day, but you need to understand what a delicious piece of octopus tastes like. If you can't differentiate in between over-seasoned, under-seasoned, perfectly seasoned, you are not going to be able to, with confidence, go like, that plate was amazing. It doesn't matter that they said it was too salty. I tasted it. The saute cook tasted it, and we all said it was delicious. They must just have a bad day or a bad argument with their boss, and they want to take it out on somebody. You know, you got to know what food tastes like all the time. Especially this year, we had a big influx of just not completely inexperienced, but inexperienced enough for me to be like, "Did you taste that chili?" "No, I didn't taste it." "Okay, well, why did we put it in a bucket, label dated, and how did it get in the cooler? And if no one tasted it, does it have cayenne pepper in it?" "Yeah." "Okay, did you use the recipe?" "Well, I kind of eyeballed it." "Well, you need to go get that and taste it, because oh my God, can't serve it. Can't serve it. Yeah. Taste food. Don't be picky. Eat the product raw. Don't just know what sauteed fennel tastes like.
I mean, I'm speaking. Don't eat anything raw. I mean, don't eat chicken raw. But like common sense.
No,
you know
don't
what I'm
eat
talking
chicken
about?
raw.
But taste your food.
Taste your food. Taste your food. Yeah. I personally have told people, "Hey, what does the vegetable say? You know, what do you mean? What do you mean, Dan? What does it say? What does the vegetable say? Has it been soaking in the water bucket for so long that it's lost all of its sweetness, and it just needs to be chopped up and just staff mealed? Or does that say, oh man, this is a fresh peeled carrot, we want to grade this and put it on top of that nice fresh salad?" You know?
Yeah, because it's sweet and like amazing, food. You know?
Have the potatoes that get peeled for mash, have they been in the bucket for too long? And they lose that natural, you don't want to have gummy mashed potatoes, but they have that natural starch content. Mash made from fresh peeled potatoes is not the same mash that you get from potatoes that have been soaking in a 5-gallon bucket for 2 days. It's not the same product. Yeah. You got to know the product, got to taste it, see what it does, and just taste your food, guys. Please just taste the food.
All right, Daniel. Listen, man, this has been awesome. It's been real. We should do this more often.
It was great
for you guys.
I feel like we kind of started one way, we went another way, but I felt like this entire conversation still ended up being like, food positive? Is delicious. Yeah, definitely positive. Food is delicious. The culture is great. Stay organized.
But you know what? We are gonna keep doing this. I like these little talks. Like, me and Daniel always like talk late nights, and let me tell you something. We have some really interesting conversations back and forth, and it's unfortunate that we haven't really recorded it up until now. So that being said, I think this would be a good podcast that him and I are gonna be doing more often, because I think everybody should know our thoughts about the industry, where it's going. I think it's just a good insight of like how the kitchen is, or the perception of the kitchen is kind of like perception versus reality is kind of different from an outsider standpoint, like we'll talk about it more,
There's so much to talk about, and JR, it's always a pleasure, and
Daniel,
we'll speak again soon, and hopefully we record it,
No, man, we're gonna do this, and if we could do it like every week, that would be awesome.
I'd love to do it every week.
All right, that's gonna be an episode of Daniel and myself. All right, man, take it easy, okay? Cook well.
All right.
Stay safe.
Taste your food. All right, JR.
Take it easy.
Take care.